Ruth? Sam gasped, his entire posture changing in a heartbeat. In the flesh, Sam. Or as much flesh as a journalist is allowed these days. Ruth Penny replied, her eyes sparkling with a familiar, dangerous mischief. The room shifted. Ruth Penny was a force of nature, a woman who had left great slaughter to chase headlines, but had never truly left the hearts of those she'd left behind, especially Sam. The silence between them was loud, filled with the ghosts of a dozen unsaid things. I'm working on a story, Ruth explained, ignoring the stunned silence of the others. How the Street Vincent's development could be rolled out nationwide. A blueprint for modern living in ancient spaces. The London papers are obsessed with it. Tomorrow is about the story of this town, Miss Penny, interjected Lynn Goodwin, the council leader, who had appeared from the shadows like a cat. Not world domination. I shall be doing the unveiling. With a flourish, Lynn pulled the cloth away. The model was a glass and steel monstrosity, sitting on the ancient stone floor like an alien craft that had crashed into a cathedral. I give you Lord Adam Sedgwick Towers, Lynn announced. Oh my, whispered Sister Peter, crossing herself. Progress, Panissa said, stepping forward. Like a shark, we keep moving forward, or we die. But as the group marveled or mourned over the model, a shadow fell across the doorway. A small, stooped figure in a dusty habit stood there, leaning on a wooden staff. It was Sister Helena, the legendary archaeologist who had spent half her life in the dirt of the Holy Land. You call this progress? Helena's voice was like grinding stones. You are building on foundations you do not understand. You play with the surface of things, while the truth remains buried beneath your feet. Chapter 2. The Secret in the Stone. The arrival of Sister Helena changed the atmosphere of the convent instantly. She was a woman of formidable intellect and even more formidable silence. While the other sisters were busy packing linens and prayer books, Helena was seen wandering the chapel with a magnifying glass and a notebook. Sister Boniface found her later that afternoon in the north transept, staring at a bronze plaque dedicated to the late Earl. Sister Helena, Boniface said softly, I've read all your papers. Egypt, Machu Picchu. Your work in Ephesus was extraordinary. You found the hidden aqueduct when everyone else said there was only dust. Helena turned, her eyes sharp behind thick lenses. All right. That's enough bootlicking, Boniface. I've admired your work too. Your forensic deductions. You have an eye for the small things that God hides in plain sight. Most people look at the world and see a forest. You and I, we see the veins in the leaves. Golly, Boniface blushed. But why are you here now? You examined this chapel years ago. Helena leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial whisper that smelled of old parchment and mint. The Lord works in mysterious ways. Sister, did I miss something then? Perhaps. Or perhaps it wasn't time for it to be found. But now, with the wolves at the gate, we shall speak further at dinner. There is a weight in this stone, Boniface. A weight that needs to be lifted, but dinner would never come for Sister Helena. The evening was a blur of activity. The town was buzzing with the news of the sale. At the local pub, the Stag and Hound, the talk was divided. Some welcomed the new jobs the development promised, while others felt the soul of Great Slaughter was being sold for 30 pieces of silver. In the dark room of the convent, Peggy, the young civilian assistant at the police station, was helping Sister Boniface develop some archival photos. Peggy looked up, her hands stained with developer fluid. I'm going to miss this, Sister, Peggy said. The cases, the mysteries, the way you always see the truth when everyone else is just looking at the clutter. The truth is always there, Peggy, Boniface replied, watching a photo of the 1920s choir slowly materialize in the chemical bath. It's just that people are very good at standing in front of it. They use their egos as a screen. A frantic knocking interrupted them. It was Sister Peter, her face pale, her breath coming in short, jagged gasps. Boniface, come quickly. It's Helena, in the chapel. They ran. The corridors felt longer than usual, the shadows of the vaulted ceiling stretching out like reaching fingers. The air in the chapel was cold, smelling of extinguished beeswax and ancient dust. There, At the foot of the altar lay Sister Helena. Her staff was broken beside her. Her eyes, which had seen the wonders of the ancient world, were fixed on the vaulted ceiling. Sightless. Inspector Gillespie arrived minutes later. He knelt beside the body, his professional detachment struggling against the personal grief of seeing a member of the Street Vincent family fallen. He reached out, his fingers hovering over Helena's pulse point, though he already knew. Blunt force trauma to the back of the head, Sam muttered, his voice thick. She never saw it coming. Ambushed in the house of the Lord. Boniface knelt on the other side. She didn't look at the wound yet. She looked at the habit. Her eyes scanned the dark wool with microscopic precision. Inspector, look at these flecks. An ivory-colored lipophilic compound. Wax? Sam asked. Not just any wax, Boniface said, her voice trembling slightly. I believe we have a killer candlestick, Sam. A sanctified weapon. An opportunistic murder, Felix noted, looking around the darkened chapel. Someone grabbed what was at hand. They didn't come here to kill, but they found they had to. But why? Sam asked. What could an old nun have that was worth killing for? She knew something, Boniface said, reaching into Helena's stiffening hand. She pulled out a crumpled scrap of paper that the old nun had gripped in her final moments. She gave this to a passing postman just before she entered the chapel. It says, In socello inconspictu, Latin, Sam said. In the chapel, in plain sight, Boniface translated, her mind already racing through the architecture of the building. Chapter 3. The Ghost of the Earl. The investigation turned the convent into a crime scene, a cruel irony for a place that was supposed to be a sanctuary. Sam Gillespie sat in the small office he had set up in the vestry, looking through the list of people who had been in the building during the blackout period. Lord Matthew, Ronnie Palliser, Lynn Goodwin, and our own sisters, Sam listed, and Ruth Penny. She was everywhere yesterday. She has a way of being in rooms she shouldn't be in. Ruth wouldn't kill a nun for a story, Sam, Boniface said, entering with a tray of tea and biscuits. Wouldn't she? She's ambitious, Boniface, and this development of the century story is her ticket back to the big leagues. She's tired of being the local girl done good. She wants to be the woman who broke the biggest land scandal in the country. Boniface set the tea down, her gaze searching Sam's face. Is it her ambition you're worried about, Inspector? Or the fact that she's back? Sam looked away, focusing on his notes. We need to look at the why before the who. Helena was an archaeologist. She was looking for something, and she found it behind that plaque. They returned to the chapel. The bronze plaque for the late Earl was loose ever so slightly. Boniface used a small screwdriver to pry it away. Behind it was a cavity in the stone, and inside that, a glass jar with a broken wax seal. Empty, Sam noted, his frustration mounting. But not long ago, Boniface added, touching the rim. The dust hasn't settled in the indentation. Something was taken from this jar tonight. Something Helena found. The investigation led them to Lord Matthew Sedgwick. They found him in the manor library, a room that felt like it was slowly being reclaimed by the earth. Stacks of unpaid bills and legal notices covered the grand desk. My father was a man of faith, Matthew said, his voice cracking as he held a glass of whiskey. But he was also a man of secrets. He told me he'd made provisions for the sisters, but I found nothing, only debt. I'm drowning, Inspector. If this sale doesn't go through, the Sedgwick name ends in a bankruptcy court. I'll be the Earl who sold the family silverware just to keep the roof from falling in. Did Sister Helena know about these provisions? She claimed she did, Matthew admitted, his eyes red-rimmed. She confronted me yesterday. She said my father's heart was in this stone and that I was betraying his soul. We argued. I was angry. I was desperate. But I didn't kill her. I couldn't. Meanwhile, Ruth Penny was conducting her own investigation. She had dug into the local archives and found a connection that chilled her. She found Sam in the courtyard, the moon lighting the tension in her face. Sam, look at this, Ruth said, holding up an old-school photograph. Sister Helena didn't just live here. She used to teach at St. Peter's. And look who her star pupil was. Sam looked at the photo. A young, scowling girl stood next to a younger, sterner Sister Helena. It was Lynn Goodwin. Lynn said Helena made her life a living hell, Ruth whispered. She hated her. She told me once she'd hated nuns ever since. She said Helena was judgmental and cruel. What if Helena found out something about Lynn's past? Something that could ruin her career? The pieces were moving, but they didn't yet form a picture. There was the waxy indentation found on the candlestick, a pattern that looked like a signet ring or a crest. There was the missing document from the glass jar, and there was the impending contract exchange, a countdown to the destruction of Street Vincent's.